I'm a survivor.
Yo, it's Varner from Survivor, the Australian Outback in Cambodia. Second chance. You don't have to dig. No climbing, no lying to anybody. You have found Survivor's hidden idol on the internet. And you didn't even need a clue, because they ain't got one. It's Survivor Talk with D&D. Dwaine and David. Take it away.
So if you feel me, put your hands in there.
Hello, welcome to Survivor Talk with D&D. I'm Dwaine.
And I'm David.
And we're just two best friends talking about the show we love, Survivor. In fact, that was the last time you get to hear Varner's intro, because the next time we do a Survivor show, we will have a new Survivor doing our intro. That's going to be exciting stuff. So how you doing, David?
Oh, I'm good, Dwaine. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It seems like we have some guests around our table today.
Keep popping up around in our screen.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. So tonight we're going to be talking about behind the scenes of the Durham Warriors Survival Challenge. And this is their fourth year of doing it. I had the privilege of going last year and doing camera work. And David had the privilege of playing last year. And this year he went with his entire family and worked backstage or behind the scenes. And so we're going to get to hear a lot of the behind the scenes. We have several people that played this year in the chat room. If you're watching live, the chat room is chatwing.com/STWDD, or you can just go to our website, stwdd.com/live. So, David, I'm going to let you introduce our guests tonight and kind of give us a rundown of what the show's going to be like.
The show's going to be like I want to talk about transitioning from the end of Season 3 to Season 4, and then we're going to talk about how Season 4 got started. This is a great opportunity for those people that want to play in Season 5, Season 6, Season 12, whatever it runs to. This is the podcast they'll be watching right before they make their video, so they get those tips on what you guys are looking for, what pops. I heard that word a lot, especially from Mike. The video popped. You got to see this video. It popped. So this is where I want you guys to make suggestions as to what people should put in the videos, what you're looking for, and then we'll talk about this season. I want to hear stuff that did not go as planned. I want to hear stuff that made you pretty excited. I think the theme of this year was balance, but I want to hear from these guys what their thoughts were on the theme from this season. And, well, let me go ahead and introduce who we got. We've got, might as well start at the top. No offense to Mike or Caleb, but you got to start with the guy with the microphone. They've got Probst. We've got John. And he's from Arizona?
Yes, sir. Hot, wonderful Arizona.
All the way from Arizona with his wrong banners, tribe flags behind him. This is John Fataha.
What'd you call him?
I don't know. I just call him John.
No. What did you call him?
He said Vataha, which is a pronunciation I get a lot. I say Vataya. I'll take either one.
Oh, Vataya.
You say okay. Fataha. I say Fataya. Let's call the whole thing on. Well, hello, right. John. Say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
There you go.
Excited to get to this.
There you go. Also, we've got the man of many hats. I'm not even going to attempt to name them all. He can tell you all the hats that he wears because he did more things than I know that he did. This is from Ohio. I think I got that right. Big Mike.
Not big anymore, brother. Yeah, Mike Albright, casting associate, tribal council producer, and confessional guru.
Absolutely.
And
I'm the opener, and Andy's the closer. So
there you go. And you're
making deals at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, and he's the thinning man.
Yeah, 252 pounds less, and probably 25 since DWSC 4 alone. So that's Pokemon Go's the real deal, man.
Yeah.
We should have done a weigh-in before the podcast. You might be down a few more after this podcast.
Yeah, you might lose some weight during the show.
Depends on how much I sweat.
Now, Mike, you also have a show that you do on Thursdays, I believe. You want to share what that is?
Sure. Mike on the Mic. I've done 4 seasons, starting in my 5th one. I started on Blood vs. Water 2, San Juan del Sur, and I'll be back. Mike on the Mic. It's on the Rad Reality Network. We don't have our guests lined up yet for next season, but we'll have all sorts of people from Co-Wrong, talking about Millennials versus Generation X.
There you go. And that show usually airs right before our show airs, so we like to compliment each other on that. So good job, Mike. Looking forward to talking to you tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And also from parts unknown, because I failed to look up where he's from. A man that's in top form, because to do what Caleb did, you have to be in top form, along with William and I think is Elijah was the third. This is Caleb Chamberlain, our lead cameraman.
How's it going? Yeah, he introduced me for me. I don't really have much to say about my laptop, so I'm doing this from my phone. So I might switch over at some point, but
yeah, we were kind of expecting your video to be amazing.
I know. Well, I
don't know what this is with all this.
Everything.
You know what? I'll tell you the same thing I told Mike. If you go to this same link on your computer, you can log in there and go from there and just cut off your phone, and you'll be logged in. All right? All right. Those are our guests. David, I'm so excited because I wasn't there, and I want to know what happened.
Well, I have to apologize as well. We're missing the third member of the other member, Andy Baker, who went on a media sabbatical. I don't blame him. And I failed to remind him about tonight. He is traveling tonight, so he could not be with us. But he says you guys go out there and crush it, and he's sure that we will. And I assure them that we would. We'd talk about him just as much as anybody else.
Yeah. And Andy, since I know you're going to listen to this, we are really going to miss you. I'm not kidding. I was really looking forward to talking to you. But these guys are going to be great.
Well, he's going to join us for season 33. I've already talked to him about that, and he's going to be watching. He's not going to be writing, but he will be watching.
All right. He can be a regular on our show if he wants.
So I'd like to start with what I mentioned earlier. I don't know how far Caleb got involved in the beginning, but for Mike and John, coming out of season 3, was there anything that you guys said flat out, we got to add in season 4, that was just like one of the first things that inspired you for season 4? How did that come about? Did anything come from season 3?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who paid attention to what was going on in season 3 remembers we had the whole swap incident, as we like to call it, where we ended up with a tribe that was just stacked with survivors. And as well as they played the game and executed the pagonging, quite frankly, it didn't make for compelling video. It didn't make for a compelling time for the audience. So we were looking for balance. You threw that word out earlier. And so from the very start, when we started thinking about how do we want to do this season, parity, that was a key word that kept coming up. We were hoping to, without controlling the game entirely, create scenarios where we had tribes that would be better matched up and would play relatively evenly through the challenges and the vote outs.
We're going to get to that eventually because I think that almost turned out about as perfect as it could work. What about you, Mike?
The biggest thing I was wanting to have is some of our people we had were great competitors, but their personalities didn't really shine through. Even our final 6 competitor, Mr. Bob Penny, great guy, but not the best confessionalist. So I advocated for a video component in the application, and that happened. And I think it helped add a lot of spice to the process of trying to find 18 fans to play this game. So, and we saw some people, as somebody mentioned earlier, that some videos that really popped, and a couple of those people's videos were outstanding, but I think when they got to the Forest of Maine, they were popping a little too much, Mr. Ariel, because damn, he had an amazing video, but he was just on fire way too fast. So, but that was the one big thing I'd like to add, aside from John talking about the survivors, just with the swap, thanks to Crispy. I want to make sure that didn't happen. But the video component, I think, was huge in getting an amazing cast. And we also had a lot of people that we could have inserted into the group as well. That we had a lot of good applicants this year.
Well, I got to tell you what, since I was at the confessionals last year, you're right. There were some confessionals that was just like, and so I think adding the video really was a great idea. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you.
This is one where it's kind of a growing pain for us. We've never had to think about any of that before. And I hope I'm not going too far off course here already, David, but one of the things we're trying to balance all the time is we're not a TV show. We don't ever want to be a TV show. So when you watch Survivor, there's people on there that are clearly just characters.
Mm-hmm.
They have zero chance of winning. They have almost no knowledge of the game. You'll never see that person in DWSC. You have no chance of making it on our cast if you don't know the game and you don't bring some sort of passion for Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we do want people that have personality and want to play hard. So we're now living in that land in between and trying to find a happy balance of both.
Absolutely. This season, like last season, is full. Especially this season, was full of fans. We've been watching some of the confessionals to pick out parts that we want Caleb to edit and stuff. And there was one where Kelly referred to these, not her tribe, but she called them survivors and fans. And she's like, well, yeah, they are fans, and it's true. Everybody on these tribes were Survivor fans, and it's so much. What's so fun about me and Dwaine is Dwaine's a Survivor fan. I love talking to him about Survivor. We can sit and talk for hours about Survivor. You get on a tribe with 8 people and they're all Survivor fans, and it's like, where else would you want to be? I mean, it just makes for a more harmonious tribe and a greater time. So since Mike brought up the videos, let's go ahead and cover that real quick. What are you guys looking for? Oh, go ahead, Dwaine.
Can I address something John said first, and then you go to that?
Mm-hmm.
Just say yes.
Sure.
Okay, good. John, I want to address what you said, because almost every season of Survivor, you look at the cast and you go, okay, obvious boot, obvious first boot, or certainly potential first boot. Last year, whenever I went last year, even the person you think might have been an obvious first boot lasted a long time. There really wasn't an obvious first boot, and I think that goes to how y'all are casting. Because you're not casting for characters, you're casting for people that love the game of Survivor, have always wanted to play but don't get the chance, and get to go out there and really kick butt and really try. And it really makes for an exciting game. And one thing I love about it is the previous CBS survivors that come and play talk about how it was so much more than they even dreamed it would be and how good it is. So there you go. No people there just for filler. No filler people.
Quick funny story about that. When we, Mike and Andy and I do the casting, and we went out to Maine and met with the Crowleys and some of the other people and kind of made our pitch on who the final cast was going to be for this year. And we quickly went around the room and said, okay, who do you think might win? And I think there were 10 of us in the room, and we had 10 different answers. And at the end of the day, we just said, you know what, this is a pointless conversation because, and we'll get to this later on, there are just so many variables that we build into the game, and not knowing how they're going to play out ahead of time, you might like somebody, but how it ultimately plays out is a big mystery. And I think that's one of the things that does make it so much fun. There isn't an automatic boot out there. I mean, there's very rarely going to be an easy vote.
Right.
That's true. Watching ahead of time and watching during the game, you can't pick it out. You really have to listen to confessionals, which people don't get to do until the season's over, and Caleb puts them all out there. But otherwise, so what are you looking for in videos? People are going to be watching this, and they want to know what do they need to add, what it needs to stick out. Do they need to talk too much or do physical stuff? What are y'all looking for in these videos?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things, and one of the things we're not looking for is high production value, and I think we probably share that with CBS Survivor. It's only a 60-second video. We don't need you to do anything extravagant. Turn on your phone, talk into it, and I already mentioned a couple of things. I need to know that you're a big fan, and you need to have a way to tell me that. And there's a million different ways you could. But that's something I'm looking for, and I'm looking for a passion and excitement. I don't want to hear, hey, this sounds like a cool thing. I kind of want to be on Survivor, but I'm not going to make it, so maybe I'll come try this out. That's not the attitude we're looking for. We're looking for someone that says, hey, this sounds like it's close to the real deal, and I'm going to bring everything I've got out there. So Survivor knowledge, Survivor fandom, and passion, I think, are the big criteria I'd throw out there. Mike, any other thoughts?
I like interesting people, entertaining people, and people that can, utilize 60 seconds, and a little pop. I do like. I am the I do like the production side of it. I like fans. We can get a lot of that via the application. But something interesting and entertaining when we're watching, we had to watch almost 70 videos. And my hats go off to those ladies and a few men in the real Survivor casting, because I can't imagine watching 10,000 of these things. 70 was plenty, but just you know it when you see it. It's the old thing that one of the Supreme Court justices said. You know when you see it. Just certain people have a certain energy and can pop, and it's not like John said, the production value. I don't care how well it's edited and all that. It's just people that can carry a good conversation. And my cat's trying to get in the shot, so this is Lex. He's out of the shot now.
So how long did it take you guys to get from 70 to 18?
Probably over the course of, I think, 2 weeks. We were actually viewing the videos as they came in. We didn't wait for them all to come in at the deadline, and then I didn't hand Andy and Mike 70 videos all at once. So we were kind of watching them as they went along. We were all doing our own independent evaluations, and then a couple weeks after the deadline, we kind of got together and said, here's my top 10. What's your top 10, Mike and Andy? We kind of compared notes, and a couple of conference calls later, we were pretty much narrowed down and ready to go.
Yeah, that's pretty much we'll just watch them as they came in, and I would organize them into one master file, and then a couple calls later, we narrowed down, did some wheeling and dealing, and established some who we liked and a bit of an alternate pool, and then we went up to it for a work weekend, and I called the network pitch meeting, and I brought dossiers of all the cast for the committee that's in Maine, mostly the Crowleys and our John Kierhofer, Mr. Kevin Thurber, and Andy, and just ran through and made the pitch and made the deals. And even after our initial group, we had to make some replacements, both from the player end or the fan end and from the talent end. It's amazing all the people that could have been survivors in DWSC. We don't want to. I don't know what John wants to let people know, but we've had all sorts of people that have been almost cast and that we've had to replace. And even this last one, we replaced somebody, I think 2 days before.
Right. It's really a tough process for casting because, as you guys probably know, we travel around, Mike and I especially. We're at a bunch of different charity events, and we see a lot of folks who we know would be good for the event. And then suddenly you have 5 or 6 people that apply, and they all know each other. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the toughest things we have to do is try to balance that out, because we're purists. We don't like all the pregame alliance kind of things that happen on returning player seasons. So we're trying to get a cast out there where as few people as possible go into the game with, strong working knowledge of someone else. So as Mike talked about earlier, there's some really good people that didn't make the cast this year, and not because they weren't qualified. It's just trying to manage through all the different connections and who we know knows somebody else and so forth. And again, it's a great problem to have. There's too many super fans that want to be a part of this.
And we watch the demographics too, John. We didn't really mention. We do try to have a balance, so it's not like second chances where there's like 5 dudes over 50. We were really looking at their age, where people are from. We also have some components we need to have at least a few people from Maine, because the event does take place in Maine. So that was kind of an interesting wrinkle in DWSC 3. But that's one component we also have to consider as well. Plus, usually there's a fundraiser that throws a wrench, not a wrench, but definitely mixes it up if you're looking for 9 men or 9 women or whatever the scenario will be. When the fundraiser can get in there, that'll skew your gender numbers.
Yeah, I was talking to Andy right before getting started when I got invited into the backstage group, so to speak, the production group. And I said, how's the casting going? And we didn't discuss any names or anything. He says, dude, we could do a season of 18 strong men. He said, this is really tough. It's really loaded. It's a great group of people. So all of you men out there that didn't get into season 4, apply again, because you were liked. It just didn't work out for that reason. But Andy's like, man, we could have an all-male season, and it would be awesome. There's so many good people that are applying. So on the flip side, what about the survivors? How does that come about? Is there anything particular y'all look for, or is this calling in favors, or how does that work?
You mentioned it on the first podcast with Jason and Ryan and Amanda. We want survivors who are going to bring it. We don't want someone who's going to show up and say, hey, thanks for inviting me to the charity event, and you can vote me out whenever you want. That's not what we're asking them. And right from the get-go, we're asking them, will you come out and play like you were playing a real show? And that just changes the experience for the applicants once they get in the game. You know, they're playing the game against folks with real experience, and it really ups it a notch for them. So to me, that's one of the biggest criteria. And also people that, if we've met them and we've seen them at a charity event and we know that they're good with fans and they interact well, that's certainly a big plus as well. And personal relationships come into play sometimes. I mean, somebody's got to call and make an ask. So if we know you, it's probably a better chance that you might get a buzz from us. But I think between Pickett and Mike and myself and Andy, we know just about everybody who's ever played the game. So it doesn't narrow the field down too much to say that we might have met you somewhere along the line. It's kind of neat to get folks like the two Ninas, Nina Porsche, Nina Acosta, or even like this last season with Purple Kelly, because these are folks who came out of Survivor with not necessarily the best taste in their mouth. You know, something on the show left them wanting to go back and have a different ending. And in some strange way, DWSC has done that for them. And they come out with this idea of redemption or second chance, and they really put everything they have into it. And you can really feel the difference with people like that.
Yeah, I think y'all hit another home run this year with the 6 that you got. So when y'all see the videos, you'll know what we're talking about. When you see these people run, when you see them play, you'll know, like John said, they were here to play, and they were here to win. So this was another great group of 6 y'all had. So going into this season, was there a theme? Was there anything particular that you started with and built around? I have a thought on what the theme was, but what about you guys? Where did y'all go going into this season?
It really was that whole concept of, well, we kind of have a couple of things we're trying to do with each new DWSC. One is we always want to keep people guessing, especially nowadays with Caleb on board and his whole crew. There's a ton of video out there, so we know that applicants are going to be looking at what we've already done. So freshness, creativity, that's kind of an overarching theme. So in terms of how we do our openings, what are the tribe configurations, what kind of challenges we have, we're always looking for new stuff. So that was one of the things. We also went into 2016 with a shorter preparation window because we moved the challenge from August to June. So we had 2 months less to build things. So if you're a student of DWSC, you saw a lot of the same props, but not necessarily used the same way they were in Season 3.
Right.
You know, some things that were individual challenges ended up being group challenges and things like that. So creative ways to get the challenge put out there, and as I mentioned earlier, just kind of a setup that would get us a better chance at parity among the tribes. I think that was the big themes I would say were early on in our discussion.
What about you, Mike?
I just echo pretty much everything John said. The biggest thing was a tighter turnaround and some of the amazing things that Kevin has made and his crew and Kathy, Dubar. This is stuff that they put together, utilizing some of those same challenges but in a different way. And with next year coming up, I think there's all going to be all kinds of crazy ideas where we can put Kevin back to work in his shop building all kinds of cool things. Think about the final thing in Vanuatu, that 10-story maze. I think Kevin's working on that right now. So stay tuned.
Yeah, this was good because I was sitting with Season 3 cast to the side this year watching, and we're all saying, yep, we did that on Friday, they're doing it on Saturday. Or we did that on Saturday, and they're doing it on Friday. I was laughing because this past season to me was, so what do you think's going to happen? No, it's not going to happen. What do you think's going to happen? Oh, we're going to swap. We're going to just, no, not necessarily. You know, it was great because it flowed. The season flowed to me where there were bumps, there were possible turns, but for the most part, it stayed on course, and that to me was a twist in itself for these folks, because everybody kept, and that was the fandom that was out there to me, that everybody had 3 ideas of what was going to happen later that night, or they had 2 ideas of what was going to happen first thing in the morning. And I was telling Dwaine, that's what just drove me nuts of being happy. I got to hear all this and got to listen to all this, and Andy kept telling me, you're going to love it, you're going to love it. And it was great. And that's as a Survivor fan, that's what I love to hear. What do you think's going to happen? And we don't always get that on the show. So we got that from 9 o'clock until 2 o'clock in the morning. We got to listen to 24 people tell us over and over what was going to happen and what wasn't going to happen.
And the thing you got to see this year, David, is all the players from Jump Street were already thinking who we want to get rid of, who we want to vote out, and that took a while. I don't know if it was hard, and I think you were fine with talking about that, but some of the players, one thing I also did to make the players a little more comfortable is the fans were sending an email that kind of covered what production was going to do during the day. You might have real short unofficial confessionals, in the evening there'd be confessionals, and we'll make sure that the survivors know, because we had some grouchy survivors at 1 in the morning doing confessionals because they didn't really know, but it's like the real show. But that was one thing that really changed it, and from the get-go, all 24 players were really on fire. And as upset as some of the cast were, and we talked about that with some of the people, the production and the extended production team on Saturday, as upset and late as their confessional was, they each did 3 official confessionals, and David and Andy and Caleb and I did 59 confessionals. So I feel for them at 1:30 in the morning. They're in the middle of a game, but we're in our own game as well. So.
David, you touched on something, and I can tell you, I'll speak for Andy on this as well. Some of the most satisfying feedback that we get is when we hear, like I heard Ryan 2 or 3 different times in your first podcast saying, well, I thought this was going to happen, but it didn't. And I thought that was going to happen, and something else did. And that, to us, is success, because there were so many possibilities out there. We made some stuff look like what we had done in Season 3 or something that we had done in Season 2, hoping that the astute contestant would jump ahead and say, okay, I know what's coming next, because almost every time that wasn't what was coming next. Right. So that state of continuous confusion, having achieved that, it feels really good for the twisted minds like us who spent a lot of time trying to create that.
I love it. The people that were studying, I was going to be one of the on Bob's porch or somewhere doing the first quick video, and at the last second I got pulled to be a driver, which I love. So if I can be a driver next year, I would love to be a driver. So I get people in the car, and it's one at a time. If I don't have 2 and they start saying something, I kind of calm them down. I can't really talk to you or anything, but they're saying, I thought we'd get blindfolds. I thought we were doing this. I'm like, do you want a blindfold? And no. And it was so neat, because if you're thinking about playing and you get invited or accepted to play, you got to think of the 5 things that could start, and then think of number 6. There's going to be a number 6 and a number 7 that you don't think about. And this year was another great start. I love that we drove them out. They could look at each other. They couldn't talk, but they could wonder, why am I with this person? Where's this person from? Have I seen them before at a Survivor audition? And some of them have. Some of those have that eye contact. And it was great sitting with 2 tense people, because all I could think was, I know exactly what you're thinking. I had a blindfold when I was in this car, but I know exactly what you're thinking.
And I can describe from the casting angle, watching a line of cars show up, these people you've seen on a 1-minute video, or you've been talking a little casually on Twitter or Facebook just so you can kind of get to know them, or via email. And when they all pull up and you've got to direct them, and it was like herding cats for those 2 hours. And one player was late, so we were like, are we going to the alternate pool? It was just nuts, and there were 3 checkpoints, and they couldn't interact. And that was, I told Caleb we need to make sure we videotape that next year, because it was like watching the marooning on Borneo, just a cluster, whatever. I don't know what this podcast is rated, but it was from, I don't know the timetable, John, was it 2 to 4 p.m. I think on Thursday? Was insane for Lou Odo and I. Nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Yeah, David, you mentioned at the opening, wanted to talk about things that didn't work or almost didn't work. We had a super aggressive timeline this year. We had all 18 contestants showing up at the same place, 6 at 3 o'clock, 6 at 3:15, 6 at 3:30, and the goal was they would be in, checked, videoed, and out of there in 10 minutes. And we had a similar situation going on elsewhere with 6 survivors coming all in within 30 minutes of each other. So it was an extremely aggressive timeline, and like Mike said, all you need is one person to be late, and suddenly you've got 5 other people who are just kind of hanging there trying to wait. What do we do next? You know, we're all on cell phones calling each other. Do we go to plan B? But the beauty of where we're at now is we've got people who just step up, fill in the gaps, and the contestants never even know any of that happened, and that's part of the reason it's fun to do this podcast. But as Mike said, we almost had a disaster right at the opening because we were missing a contestant. They were 20 minutes late. We didn't know where they were. So,
well,
we're calling everyone on
you never can plan for that stuff. You just react to it.
Well, I, as a first-time worker, did not see really any stumbling blocks. I know who was 20 minutes late, but otherwise, because he was in my car. But otherwise, I thought it was great. I love watching Lou run around like a chicken with his head cut off. I think that's the funniest thing in the world. But I thought the videos are great. The people are running up, the running back. But watching the tenseness on their face, watching the nerves as they get out of their cars, as they pull up, even watching, I had somebody, I won't say who, I had somebody in my front seat. We're waiting for the fella to join us, and somebody else pulled in, and they said, they've got too much makeup on. They're not ready to play. You know, it was the funniest thing. I'm like, there you go. Start thinking now. I didn't say that, but that's what I'm thinking. You start making your judgments now. But Mike's right. Seeing these cars line up on the driveway, it is so exciting from the production side. It is awesome.
And I was very intense, and I used some very adult language. I know for that hour it was nuts. Like, hey, you go over here, and that one person that was late because we tried to leave out in that particular year in their pairs for the canoe, which ended up being such a big thing for each of the players. Who's in your canoe was a big freaking deal for I think almost everyone that played. So it was fun, and we need a drone to videotape that next year. So
yes.
Oh yeah, we're working on it.
There you go.
Any sponsors that want to donate that to Caleb would be awesome.
Anytime, Caleb, because we're now live into your parts too. So anytime you want to chime in, these guys will talk if you don't speak up. So anytime you want to break in.
Oh yeah, I will. Trust me.
Well, I'm sorry it was a hassle for Mike and you guys, but I had a blast. I love Thursday afternoon. It was fun. But getting to the drop-off point, where we take them over to the woods. They have no idea. They want to ask me what's going on. I tell them we can't talk. We get there, and as soon as we see the rocks, which I remember just about falling asleep on, we pull up, and I say, I'm going to turn around, and I'm going to drop you in front of that guy standing in the woods. And that's all I would tell them. And we pull up, and I say, get out. That's all I would tell them. You know, I didn't want to be nice to them or be mean to them. I just said, you got to get out. And then here comes John walking out of the woods, and they're like, you could just tell. They take that breath, and they're like, and I'm like, if you think it started now, it should have started back at Bob's house. But if you stay, but it starts for you now. That's good. So how did that work for you, John? What was that like? Did it go as well as you expected?
Oh, it went, I think, better than expected. I didn't know what to expect when people were getting out of the cars, and we got a whole range of reactions. We got people who were still deer in the headlights and just staring at me like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And I had people who jumped out of the car and were just like yelling hello to everybody they could find just because they were so full of enthusiasm and didn't know what to do. And it was just fascinating for me to watch all these different reactions. And then, of course, they're trying to figure out what's the relationship between me and the other person in the car. Or wait, there's 4 more people over there. What do I do? Are they part of my tribe? We don't have shirts. What's going to happen next? And just watching that all unfold to me is fascinating. That's the part of the game I really love, is just the psychology of what do I do? How do I make a friend early on? Should I start playing the game or just get to know people? And we had people doing everything you could imagine within that first 10 minutes after you dropped them off.
That was really good because we learned Thursday night in confessionals that everybody had a different view. Everybody had a different idea, and that's when the fandom kicked in that, you know, I was riding with so-and-so, you know, I learned their name, and then I got a canoe with them. But I really thought that was going to be our tribe of 6. I thought we were going to go from there, and I loved, hats off to you guys, because the canoe buddies which is what I called them when we were doing confessionals with the short confessionals. Your canoe buddy. Talking about that person. Some people still didn't know their names by Thursday night or Friday morning, but yeah, the guy I was in the canoe with. But the canoe buddy dynamic was awesome because it worked strong in some and it went away in others. So it wasn't all the same for every pairing. Some pairings split almost as soon as they got out of the canoe, and some were locked for life once they got out of the canoe.
I'll give you a little behind the scenes on the canoe pairings because I don't know how much of this we've said publicly, but there was order to the groupings. The first 6 that showed up at the landing there were who we deemed to be the 3 strongest physical male competitors and the 3 least strong female competitors, just based on our 60-second impression of you from the video and how you rated yourself on the application. The idea being that hopefully the 3 groups, once they paddle down the pond, they're fairly well matched up physically. And then it's all about how well they work together. And then the other dynamic would be when you show up, and ultimately, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, when you have to make a choice of one of those 3 pairs, you're looking at what should be 3 relatively evenly matched people in terms of what they physically bring to the table. So there was some order to that. And then as to who was paired with whom, we get into some of the stuff I talked about before. Do people know each other? Are they from completely different parts of the country? Are there scenarios we can set up where there might be some conflict between the pair? We spent a lot of time just talking through who are we going to drop in there. So for them, it probably just seemed random, but there was an awful lot of thought that went into not only who was in your canoe, but which group were you in. So group 1 was perceived strongest male. Group 2 was the perceived strongest female. And group 3 was what we perceived to be all the middle people. So I don't know if all the contestants were aware of that, but that's how those initial groups were ultimately sorted out.
It's interesting that you actually say that because I was working on the videos earlier, and during confessionals, Dan said when they pulled up to the second group, which would have been the strong female and the weaker male, he said as soon as they pulled up, he saw a boat, and he said, strong female, smart players, so that's why they took them. And that was just the initial thing that kind of came to his mind. So, subconsciously, they did realize that that's what was going on. So
that probably would have been, I think that was Maria.
Yep, Maria and Ariel.
It was great because one of the things I was listening for in the confessionals was, did the order count? Did the which canoe got where first count? And I think it was Jeremiah and Amanda said their first canoe buddies were Laura and John. And before they even got to Keith and Julie, they were bonded. Those 4 were bonded. They were locked in. They had made their foursome alliance. I'm like, yes, that's what you want to do. You want to do that quick. And I love that came about because of that, which is luck. I was talking to somebody in the game. Survivor's about 60% social, 10% physical, and 30% luck. There is a lot of luck in Survivor, and it's the luck of the draw. Because those boats, those orders could have been shifted around the other way. It's just the way it happens to fall. So, getting picked by who you get picked, hey, start making a show on the canoe where you're waiting to get picked, and you'll see what happens from there. So it's got a lot to do with luck, too.
For sure.
But that was I love the canoe aspect. It took me a few minutes to get my head around it. I had it on paper in front of me. And Mike, I think, tried to explain it to me once. Dr. Jill and I read over it like it was a menu, trying to figure it out, and I think we finally got it together right before it kicked off. And,
it was really complicated, and I tried to explain it to Dr. Jill and I think Kathy Sleckman that were standing there before it all started. And I think after the 3rd time, they're just looking at me like, all right, we'll just watch to see what happens. It was really kind of complicated to explain. But the beauty of it is it wasn't complicated to the contestants. They knew exactly what they needed to do. They were focused on getting the next stop and following the instructions on the note. But trying to wrap your head around all the different dynamics that were going on at the same time, it was complicated.
Yeah, that was really good. So while this is going on, you've got 3 pairs of survivors heading into 3 different paths, which Mike and I took one of the paths earlier that day, and I think that was about 10,000 of our steps.
Oh, yeah.
But 3 different sets of survivors with one person each following them, going into one space, and then now, Mike, I think you were there, right, when the survivors got there?
Yeah, we just made it. We got I didn't have to make the 10,000 step trip again. We got a member of production snuck us back through some back route. We got there. We got to watch that, and amazingly, that group of survivors were together, and I made sure to get all of them in a real quick confessional, and that was fun. And I was like, well, what do you think of this group of people? Because, I never conveyed tribe. I wanted to say group, but I was able to get to 83% of them, I think, before the twist happened. And it was good to see them watch. And the biggest thing is we didn't have any snafus this year that I'm aware of with the survivors. Last year, we had some interesting people that did not adhere to their directives, one of which I helped get cast, one of which you had the best confessional moment of the entire DWSC 3. Mr. Jamie Newton just did not follow orders, but we didn't have that this year, so that was good. This group figured out what they're supposed to do.
That's one of the littler things we learned from Season 3 as well. You really need to manage your survivors because they're free-spirited, and you got to give them less choices. So we really cut down the alternatives for our initial 3 pairs. And the escort going with them was kind of a response to last year as well, to make sure they weren't going completely off course and doing something crazy like Jamie did.
Yeah, that was a good idea. My daughter Gracie got to be the escort for Spencer and Twyla, and she said she couldn't believe the role she got. She was completely honored to do that, and that was really, really cool. I remember, yeah, those survivors are they're good. They do come to play, and they're going to do whatever they can do and get away with until they're told not to. Like last year, Dr. Jill and I had a one-on-one podcast where we just talked about the season, and she admitted to swiping some of the barge reward before we actually got up there. And we thought, wow, if this is the reward we're going to get, this could have been a little more. And she said, well, it was more until we came by, and we swiped some of it, and you guys got a little less than what you were supposed to get. So you got to watch those survivors. They are survivors. Never forget, they are survivors. They've been in the game, and they know the game. No matter where they finished, they know the game pretty well. So then we get to what could have been a controversial end of the canoe challenge. It really wasn't. It was really a matter of what all your school teachers tell you: follow the directions. You're given directions. Follow the directions to the letter. So how did you obviously caught what was going on, John, between the red and the green tribe and the pole and the flag. So how was that for you?
Yeah, it's a little frustrating because you've got these folks arriving. The tribe shows up. They're super excited, because they're the first ones there. And I'm just kind of staring at them, and they're looking for me to tell them something. And I don't want to go back and say, guys, follow the directions. But ultimately, that's what it came down to. And I know you mentioned that on the first podcast, too, and it's such a great point. It is amazing to me how many things get missed out there because people aren't taking in all the information that's available to them. The notes about arriving there are very specific. It says, go to the second checkpoint and get on land with your tribe flag. It wasn't difficult. But we had one tribe that was there in the right spot but didn't have their flag. Then we had another tribe that comes and they're there with their flag, but they're not in the right spot. So we just kind of let it play out and let them sort it out for themselves.
Yeah, it was good. I think it was Ariel that said, John never said you won the challenge. He said you're the first ones to arrive. And that's when he went back and read, and they didn't have their flag, and they went back, he got his flag, and they were able to run up there and get near the pole, the spot they were supposed to land at. So that was pretty cool. And funny thing was, if they had come in second, they might not have gotten the survivors that they got, and it could have been a different game. This is just what I love about Durham. It happens so fast, it goes so quick, and it sometimes maybe for the luck of the green, if they don't win, they get somebody else. Because what was so neat about this season was the survivors were kept apart. It was 2 per tribe. Whoever, green won, they got first pick, red second, got second pick, and Opa took third. But each tribe played with and handled their survivors completely different. And it made the season as balanced as it was. And I love that aspect of this season. All 3 sets got picked, and it's funny that the ones that got picked when they did. But each group went into it differently, and each tribe handled it differently. So I guess the end of Thursday night, was there anything else that happened Thursday that wasn't supposed to happen, or that surprised you, or just caught you off guard or anything?
I don't think so. I think Thursday, after we kind of sorted it out, we went back to run that initial challenge back at Stump Corral. That, again, was something new.
Mm-hmm.
We had never done a Thursday challenge before, and that played out well. We wanted that to kind of catch everybody off guard and just kind of amp it up a little, another notch. Like, oh my gosh, I thought we could take a breath and we were going to go to camp, but no, there's a challenge coming. So I think that worked pretty much exactly how we had hoped. And we all left Thursday just kind of giving each other high fives. I think it was a very successful opening with just a few logistical hiccups in terms of getting people in the game. But once it got rolling, I think everything went pretty much as planned.
Yeah, Mike mentioned earlier about casting their props for CBS for what they have to go through. At the same time, these people have to put together an entire season, a 39-day season, twice in a year. I mean, it's so much to process and to put together. I can't imagine the stress you guys were under putting it together for the 4 or 5 days, and then these guys having to do it for 2 39-day stretches. So, and trying
Absolutely.
to be different, trying to be unique.
Yeah.
Last year's Thursday night was awesome. We thought we were done. We were all one happy group. None of us really believed we were tribed because we were never called tribe. Some of us had that conversation until you guys came back and threw us out into the woods blindfolded and make us run to fire. Hopefully you don't fall in the fire, but we were kind of waiting. Nobody wanted to go to sleep. It just didn't seem finished. Whereas this year, I think some of the people walked up in the Stump Corral thinking, hey, we're going to see the crowd, we're going to wave, and we're going to go to our camps. We're all tribed up. We're done. Now we just get to go rest somewhere and become a socialized camp. No. You got a challenge. There's something else here waiting for you. That's the neat part about these 4 days. You don't think about sleeping. Andy told me that when I played last year. He goes, just don't plan on sleeping. It'd probably be best if you don't. So be prepared. The game never ends. It never stops. It runs for 4 days, and it's all day. It's 24/7.
Yeah, we don't have the luxury of 39 days to get people hungry and just worn down. So we have to do everything we can to up the ante in terms of creating tension and throwing curveballs at people all the time. And it just comes at you continuously because we don't have the luxury of time. So your advice is spot on. Just be prepared. You're going to be in the game basically from Thursday afternoon until Sunday afternoon. And don't expect there to be much downtime because it's just not going to happen.
Exactly. So after, let's see, confessionals went from Thursday night to Friday morning. That was fun. How was that for you, Caleb?
Oh, well, it was definitely interesting. I mean, kind of there comes a point, and I noticed it during the OPA confessionals as I've been going through those, that I tuned out completely to what people were saying because I was trying to think of technical things. But also it was kind of like at that point is actually the nicest part of the day, especially on Thursday because I finally get to slow down from everything. Because up until that point, the whole production team is always moving around. We're doing different things, and then at that point, we finally get to stop. It did kind of at first. I was actually kind of starting to freak out because it started raining during the confessionals while we were doing those. But no, yeah, it's definitely interesting because when I lay down the footage, we get an average of about 4 hours of confessionals every night, and so and then time with how much time we put into it turns into like 6 or 7 every night that we do them. But being able to get all that info and always be aware of what's going on is always probably like the coolest part of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. People have asked me if I'd ever actually play the game, and that's one of the reasons why I probably wouldn't, because I'd be too paranoid about not knowing what's going on all the time. So, but no, yeah, it's definitely really cool to be able to do all the confessionals. But there does come a point, as some of the people here do know, it gets pretty tiring to the point where I may or may not fall asleep.
Yeah, Caleb falls asleep, and I get more insane throughout the 6 hours. I'm already pretty nutty, but that 5th hour, 6th hour, we should record some of that. And it's amazing. In March I had scouted out the confessional locations, and they look great. But then you got to think March in Maine versus June in Maine.
Oh yeah, it's completely different. I was up there in December to get stuff for 2015 last year, and I was like, it looks nothing like it's supposed to. And then when you get up there again, it looks all different all the time. So, but
yeah,
and then the lighting.
We're walking out in the woods, and I'm like, why are we scouting for spots? I thought you guys already found spots.
We had.
Didn't we like this tree? Caleb, wasn't this tree?
We had a great tree, but then it was covered by a bunch of other stuff. It was a great shot in March. It was perfect, but there we also didn't have Bob's boat available, and that became our I don't even know the term. It became a great place to be, and I think even the cast was hanging out on that boat too much. So if you think you're going to be hanging out on a boat in DWSC 5 at night, you're mistaken. Your butt's going to be in the dirt, on a rock, on a root, not on Bob's boat. Only the production team will be on it, so get ready.
Yeah, the boat became our go-to confessional booth until I think it was Friday night. It dropped down in temperature, and being on the water was probably the worst place to be because there's no trees blocking any breeze or any wind. So thanks to all the Crowleys that brought us all the protection warmth that we could last through the night. Even in June, it gets cold in Maine. So that was
we
good.
couldn't put a fire on the boat, or we would have. It would have been helpful, but yeah. Paige, David, and John Crowley were all instrumental, so I want to give them a shout-out. Absolutely. They brought us food, which was some delicious meatballs. I don't even know at what time. David would run out flashlights, and then when you see the confessionals on Saturday, people, I know I don't want to jump ahead, but my goodness, it took 2 hours just to set that up alone, and it's well worth it when you see it. So I can't wait to show you that when you see the videos later on.
Yeah, that's another thing I really liked about this year was all the confessionals from every night. They're all different and they all look amazing. So it's going to be very exciting to actually, have those all come out for people to see them. But I definitely liked the Saturday night setup. I won't spoil it because there are 13 people who don't know what that is, but there's 11 people who do. But
yep.
It looked really cool.
Yeah, as we're sitting there, I'm sure Caleb's thinking about lighting and torches and what he can do, and I'm thinking about what pants I should wear next year and what different jacket I should bring next year for these nighttime confessionals. So Friday morning, we get up and it's reward challenge day. So let me know if I'm skipping anything. This turned out to be a fantastic day, especially towards the end. I won't get there too much yet. But was there anything particular y'all were looking forward to during this day? The challenges I loved, but I liked the lockdown areas. That's where I was hanging out. I was hanging out near the tribe areas to see who was talking to who and who was saddling up to who. And so tell me what y'all starts were on Friday. John, you've been quiet for too long. We'll go to you first.
Well, Friday was the first chance for us to really get a feel for the whole thing on parity. We hoped we had set this up. Opa didn't look real good coming down on the canoes. They didn't look real good doing the puzzle. So, this is fear in the back of your mind. Do we have the weak tribe out there again that's going to fail? So Friday was kind of the litmus test for that was, how is this going to play out? How well are these teams lined up? And it just seesawed back and forth. One tribe would win. I don't know if this is true, but my memory tells me we never had a tribe win 2 challenges in a row. And that was just awesome for us in production because we finally had that balance that we were looking for. No tribe felt defeated. Everybody thought they had a chance to win whatever it was they're playing for on Friday.
What about you, Mike? How did Friday go for you?
Yeah, I was really anxious from talking to the tribes. I was, Opa had some trouble at the beginning, and I was like, I hope they can turn it around. And it was interesting from the first night of confessionals, I was kind of worried about certain players, like, well, they kind of stumbled out of the gate. Can they regroup when the challenge component? But some people pretty much had sunk themselves pretty quick, and there was no redemption for them. But it was fun to watch, and the parity was shocking. I was actually running through some scenarios throughout the day because I was watching the numbers as I tracked everything of, what was going on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, something could happen here. And I was like, I couldn't, and even from being in so many production meetings, I couldn't remember how many challenges were that day, and I had to keep going back to my notes because I'm like, I was about to be like, what happens if it's a tie after the 6 challenges? Like, what happens? Like, what are we gonna do? And I'm like, oh, there's enough that it worked out, but I was like freaking myself out. But it was amazing to watch Opa, and I would say the coolest thing to watch on Friday was the fall. Opa had fallen Thursday, and then their rise and their subsequent refall and the equalization. It was the ebb and flow of everyone. Was Sawa going to dominate? Where was Ahasa going to do? And it was just, I love Friday. It was just amazing. And get into the afternoon with what happened at the very end. It was just so cool how balanced everything was.
So, did the challenges run longer than you guys expected them to, or was that about the time that you thought it would end, or do you remember?
It was pretty close to
longer, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty close, just a little bit longer than what we had originally scheduled. We're always fairly loose with our timelines, but it wasn't off by more than 15, 20 minutes probably. Friday was intended to be an earlier wrap-up day to give the tribes more time to go back to camp and to bond. Because unlike prior years, you just spent all of Thursday night and now all day Friday, including Friday night, with the same people. And that was part of what we were doing, is giving them time to really bond so that by the time you got to vote out on Saturday, it was a little more painful. So Friday was intended to wrap up on the early side.
Yeah, I got a lot out of the mental side of it. I can also confirm to Mike that we were sitting by the picnic table and he was trying to think, do we have a tiebreaker? And then it dawned on him that we have one more challenge come up, because he lost count many times during the day of how many challenges were still coming through. But last season on Friday, when the Survivor tribe dominated, they ate and they slept between each challenge. They told me this later, and that goes a lot to their mental fortitude, and that when they woke up, they knew they had to go fight. They knew they had to go play, and this is a 4-day game. There's no time to slack. And the OPA and the nap gate that happened at lunch, I guess it was at lunchtime. You probably heard Ryan talk about it. They came out at lunch and they didn't hear any directions you gave them. I think it was the bucket brigade challenge, and they had to ask you like 2 or 3 times to keep telling them what the directions were, because they weren't getting it. So you got to be careful. I mean, the rest is good, but when you come out of the rest, you got to be ready to get right back into the game, because you can't take that off, because that could have been the one challenge that knocked them out. It could have put them in a mental state or emotional state that would have put them in a bad place on Saturday. And you don't want to start Saturday on a low. You want to start Saturday as strong as possible. But I loved him Ryan admitted to that. He says, yeah, the nap was a mistake. I think Derek said the same thing. The nap was bad. They came back so strong, like y'all said, Friday morning, and then after lunch it was like back to old OPA.
So, crash and burn. OPA could have gone, yeah, it could have been a whole other thing if they hadn't done that. And they all talked about that at their confessional, because I was a little bit removed because I was, watching Tribal, or no, there wasn't Tribal yet, but just went around watching other stuff and wasn't back with the tribes when that was going on. But yeah, that totally changed everything for them.
Yeah. So as we're getting towards the end of the day, you couldn't have scripted a better second to last challenge, because we were saying what has to happen to be a tie, and I think it was red, OPA, and then green, then Sawa. So it was Ahasa, then one of those 3, but red had to win. And sure enough, red pulls out the win, I believe Ahasa, and then it fell right in order, and it was a 3-way tie. And it was perfect. You couldn't have asked for a better, more balanced finish. And then we come up to the blink of an eye challenge, with the smelly challenge, with the fish challenge. I love that y'all threw this in here, because it had to have made them smile. This was the challenge for all the marbles for the boat ride, but still, you get to throw fish. I mean, it was awesome. Whose idea was the fish challenge?
I think it was Bob's. We're always trying to find something that has a local flavor. And
smell.
we came up with a bunch of different main themed things, and thought that the fish one was kind of fun. You know, they'd just been through a lot of really hard challenges, and we thought it was a fun way to end the day. It had some local flavor, and it as it turned out, like you said, there was a lot on the line. We hadn't really thought about this fish challenge being basically the tiebreaker for Friday, but it was sure neat when it turned out that way.
Yeah, it was a nice balance on Friday of mental and physical, and just same thing with the last season and seasons before. It's well balanced in Survivor that it's not all physical. There's some mental and there's some strategy to it. So that was really good. So we leave Friday with a tiebreaker win for Sawa. They get to go on the boat ride. Everybody gets a little break as they go on their boat ride before the next twist comes around. So was this an early twist planned, or was this something that just evolved from y'all talking about how the season was going to go? Where did the kidnap twist come from?
This was something that came early on. I think, gosh, probably within the first month or two of planning, this was an idea that came out. We were going to do a nighttime challenge or something else, and it kind of just kept evolving until we ended up with this crazy kidnap idea. And again, with the general theme in mind, don't ever feel comfortable, because just when you do, something's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. That was good. Last year it was us getting used to our new tribes because we had our swap at the end of Friday, and this year it was, don't get comfortable because you never know what's going to change. And Ryan's in our chat room, and he wanted to thank you again for the smell he took with him on Friday after the first challenge. He really appreciated that. Rachel too.
That's something we actually ended up talking and chuckling about when we said, hey, you know what else? If that's the last challenge on Friday, they get to go back to camp stinking. They already smell sweaty and bad. Now we're going to add some fish scent. And we all got a good laugh about that. And once you get to know our twisted way of designing these things, we all got some strange satisfaction out of that.
So the next part was, I keep having favorite moments of the weekend, and this was another one of my favorite moments. I got assigned to a Hassa. Is it Hasso or Hassa?
Hasso.
Hasso. Okay. But and I get to wait as John walks up with his pictures, the six pictures for them to look at. So how let's see. How do you want to? What do you want to say about this little time of the game?
This was another one of those where we had talked about it 100 times, and logistically we knew how we wanted to present it, but we had no idea how the tribes were going to receive it. So for me, it's again one of these fascinating social experiments. I'm going to lay it out for you, and let's see what they do with it. And listening to Ryan and Jason talk about it, and even Amanda, I think they all went down the same road initially, thinking, let's pick two people that are strong because they're going to end up being on our tribe. And we kind of hoped that that's what they would think. And then we also hoped that they would then quickly turn their thoughts to, oh no, did we just create a fourth super tribe? And sure enough, both of those ended up playing out. So walking up there with the pictures, I just have all this going through my mind. What are they going to do? How are they going to react to this? And like you, I'm looking at this as like, this is just fun. Like, what's going to happen right now?
Yeah, the confessionals that night and what we talked about in the first podcast was exactly that. They all jumped at, who do we want, who do we want, who do we want, what can we do? I think Ryan and Sam got picked because they looked like people that could get along with other people, and then Jason knew that he was probably going to get picked to be strong in challenges, but as soon as they think about who they want, their second thought is, who's going to get taken? And who's going to go? And this was great for the confessional team because it gave us such great meat to talk about Friday night, right, Mike?
Oh yeah, there was some amazing material, and they were used to us coming up as a confessional team. Well, we added a little bit of a VIP person there that they're not used to seeing in camp. So when our Probst, our John showed up, it was nuts, and they were freaking out. It was fun to watch. And it was a nice big posse of people rolling up on these camps, and it was just seeing them all together. Then seeing the assembled group at the end was just really cool to see who they picked and the reaction they had, and then the quick, getting them into the group and picking their brains. It was fun to see what they thought was happening.
David, one of the most interesting things for me about the whole way it played out, I said hello to the tribes. I said, in case you don't remember who you're competing against, I brought pictures, and I laid them out on the ground of whichever tribe they had in front of them. And I said, you now have 30 seconds or whatever I gave them to pick 2 of them. And out of all of the contestants on all 3 tribes, there was only one person that asked me why.
Who was that?
It was Spencer. Everyone else just went right into it, and you could hear them debating. And I had a prearranged speech I was going to give them. Basically, I wasn't really going to answer the question, but that was one of the things that was fascinating. Where you're ready, you think everyone's going to want to start asking you a lot of questions. Well, tell me why I'm picking these 2 people so I know what criteria to use. But only Spencer on OPA, and the other 2 just went right into it and gave me their choices.
That's interesting, and that's what we got from. I loved our first podcast with Ryan and Amanda and Jason because it was honest. Their confessionals were honest. They gave us a lot of great stuff in their confessionals, and at the first podcast it was the same thing, and they did. Even Jason admitted he jumped right in, of who he wanted to pick, and then what's neat about it was the 6 that got picked, when they finally got sent to where they went, they admitted to having a say in who got picked. And it kind of became a complimentary thing where like, oh, you picked me and I picked you and they picked them, and it worked out to that benefit. But this was really neat for me on Friday night because this is where the canoe buddy relationships started to either fracture or solidify. And we saw some people like Amanda and Jeremiah that were not breaking up. They were solid. They were fortunate to stay together. But now Laura was gone and John was left, and Ryan was gone and Jason was gone, but Kelly was left. And we started to see some of the shifts that were going on with these alliances. And this is, like I said, this is what I loved, hearing about this part. We started hearing things about idols. We started hearing things about digging, playing tic-tac-toe in the dirt to try and cover up a dig. And this is where we started to get an idea of what these 3 tribes wanted to do with their survivors. And it was really great. It was so diverse. Mike, if you want to say anything, just speak over me. But I love that Hasso wanted nothing to do with their survivors. They wanted to get rid of them 1 and 2. And then Jason and Kelly kind of in a polite way bullied their way into leading their tribe. And that was so interesting. And then Spencer and Twyla, to me, just kind of borged their way in. Resistance is futile. We're just going to become you. So what do you think about all that, Mike?
It was amazing, and it was curious, like you said, if Saul had gotten, or if Hasso had gotten Jason and Kelly, they would have been Matt and Nina, because I don't think any scenario, and I think it was neat whose stock rose and whose stock fell. I think people immediately were worried about whatever survivors were on a Hasso, but Matt became a big target because Matt was just so open with that he really dug Jason, and I think Laura picked that up and took that back when they came back, and just the power there. It was just interesting to see between the people with who rose and who fell, and like you were saying, it was neat how the survivors integrated. Matt and Nina tried their best. It looked like they were targeted. Were going to be a big problem no matter what, even with John being a pre-player, but Twyla and Spencer really integrated, gotten a majority, but it was more of seemed less of a strong arming. But Jason and Kelly, they even did their confessional together one night. That's how tight of a bond they had. And they just had control, and I can't believe they came over together when 6 other people could have talked about it. And I was just like, how I thought it was a bit arrogant, and we saw which survivor group did the best, so I think that paid dividends for if future survivors are watching this, how to approach it. That whatever the luck's a big part, but then how you work with your group, and I think a lot of Sawa had some resentment.
It's funny. I would have liked to have seen Jason and Kelly get picked by a Hasso to see if they would have had as good a success as they had with Sawa. And like you said, I remember thinking that I guess it was Thursday night when Jason and Kelly came over together. My thought was, I want to go back over to the camp and see what the 6 are talking about, because if they're not talking about getting rid of these 2, you got to be kidding me. What are they talking about? These 2 are so brazen. They come over here together are willing to separate themselves from the group and talk about them and laugh about them. And as loud as my friend Jason is, they had to have gotten echoes off the water of what he was talking about.
It started even before that, because on the walk on Thursday afternoon, after the survivors were picked on their tribes, I was kind of leading the way as we all walked on the trail, and Kelly and Jason were right behind me. And so I could hear them talking the entire way. And for the most part, and I think Jason even said this in your first podcast, they weren't really making much of an effort to integrate. They were just making their plans. It was going to be them two strong, and they were going to come in and they were going to dominate their tribe. And there weren't any other folks from their tribe with them. So that was apparently their MO from the very get-go.
Yeah, it was once again, it was the luck of the pick, because I think both the green and red both kind of were nervous about Spencer, and they both passed on Spencer, a strong competitor, but also a smart competitor, and they were willing to take the other two groups. And then Spencer and Twyla, if I remember right, almost everyone had Twyla in their final three or in their final four. Twyla was super popular on that tribe. And as the weekend went along, Spencer got into that tribe and got popular in that tribe, and he worked into Ryan's plans and to Rachel's plans, and I can't wait for the videos to come out for people to see how balanced and diverse this season was. But even with the survivors, I loved how they were separated and kept that way. Of course, I wish that would have happened in season 3. But anyway, I loved how it worked out this season, that they played 3 completely different games with 3 completely different tribes, and those tribes weren't put together. They were picked by each other. They were formed in canoes, and it was all random, it was all natural, and it was great, and I love that. So we get to what we call the kidnap camp, and once again we walk up with our groups. I've got Matt and Laura behind us, is Jason and Maria, and I kind of tell them to wait, not to come up, because Matt and Laura are just getting their sack and their clues, but Jason doesn't listen to anybody. So he just keeps walking, because there's his beard buddy. And then as we get closer, John's waiting for us once again at the camp. So how was that when they walked up to you?
Again, another fascinating chance to see how this is going to play out. I had found out who the 6 were going to be. I had no idea what they were going to do when they all came together. And I saw the same thing you did. I see Matt and I see Jason basically just completely embracing each other as everybody else looked on. Everyone else looked a little more, I don't want to use the word, maybe hesitant or nervous. Not sure exactly what this was. Are we a new tribe? Should we start getting to know each other? How much talking should I do? Wait, he hasn't even explained anything to me yet. But you can see all this stuff kind of swirling around in their looks as they were gathered there, waiting for me to say something.
Yes, Friday night's confessionals, I think, were some of the best confessionals from the remaining tribes and from the new 6. They got formed together. Several times we heard that we didn't get new shirts. He didn't call us a tribe, but we're here together for the night. I really hope I go back. I really hope I stay with this group. All kinds of, all throughout the spectrum, we were hearing on Friday night, and it was probably one of the longest nights, but it was probably one of the most fun nights for me, because I love that this twist brought it gave us something to chew on for that night. I know Caleb was having fun covering all the distances and trying to keep up with everybody else that was going around. But once again, we got thrown into another era. We had 4 camps to cover, so that made for another long, fun night.
Especially going through the first bunch with the kidnap group, about 4 people in. I don't know if what we're talking about with this, but there was an interesting wrinkle that, yeah. So it was difficult to get through that, and we were delayed, but then we got through the first 6 and had to do 18 more interviews. So
yeah, I'll be completely honest. Doing all of Friday night in general was actually the most engaging one. I think I'd have to say the same thing about last year, but that was the one that I actually paid attention to everything that was going on. And I wasn't thinking about anything technical, so. But.
So next year on Saturday night, somebody's going to be assigned to Caleb to keep Caleb awake. Especially through Saturday. Friday we're not worried about, but on Saturday night we need to make sure Caleb stays awake through the whole thing.
Somebody needs to be there making me coffee per interview, and I'll make it. I'll be all set if that's going to happen.
Everybody will have their own little picnic basket with them and stuff to bring. So we get to so before Saturday morning even kicks off, and before my eyes were open, I'll admit that I told Andy, I said, no thanks. You and John take care of that. Whoever else. Yeah, me and Mike were still counting sheep or getting up and getting ready. So John and Andy take off to the new kidnapped tribe who never got T-shirts, never got a name. And what happened there?
Before we get there, I'll back up real quick because we had the risk or safe choice, which was a big thing because that's where Jason ended up with his first idol. So when they showed up at camp, the first thing that I did see to them was, I need to see which choice you made. And all three had chosen risk. And that was another thing we weren't sure what was going to happen. And so they got to open the crate, and sure enough, they're going through it there, and Jason reaches in and grabs the idol, which completely changed the dynamic of the game. We had no idea that would ultimately be one of the big factors that came into play once we get to Saturday. But once he grabbed that, none of us were really surprised. Once we saw who the 6 were, to see him do that kind of fit the profile that we had figured. So when Andy and I came back on Saturday morning, we were fascinated to see, well, how did that play out? You know, where was Jason now a target, or did they really think it was a group idol, as they ended up talking about? But we didn't give them any chance to really get into any of that. Literally, I walked up on them and I said, hey guys, how's it going? They were still quite groggy, still getting themselves together. And I said, ready to get to the first challenge. And told them to get back into the pairs that they came over in from their tribes, and dropped a slide puzzle in front of them and told them they were playing for a challenge advantage. And with that, their Saturday morning got started really early.
Yeah, that was super early, and that was just another great twist. I love that. It's like waking them up in the middle of the night. I hope y'all do come up with a nighttime challenge. I think that would be awesome to pull that on them, but to throw them right back into the game. And I look forward to Caleb's edit of Jason's Friday night confessional. It was the Thursday night was him and Kelly. Friday night was him and the idol. I think. Confession. He never put it down. Yeah, the tribe idol. Yeah. I love how he kept calling it that. But you're exactly right. It was so Jason. He was the first one in there, pulled it out, and it wasn't leaving his pocket. And what's neat was his tribe mate Maria saw it, recognized what was going on, and was very aware of it for the rest of the weekend. So just another tidbit from being behind the scenes. It was neat to see all that.
That's when she stopped drinking the Kool-Aid, and I think she started lacing his Kool-Aid with cyanide. She was ready at that point to jettison from the Kelly Jason team. I think she thought she'd work with him, but I think at that point that's when she started to be like, yo, what's up here? I want to give Maria a shout out for her confessionals, and I feel bad for Caleb's going to have to edit that significantly. But a lot of salty language, but it made it very entertaining, so thank you.
It's going to be one of the best parts of the whole season is watching that.
Yeah.
And let's say it was so I guess it was Opa that chose them. So they could have chose somebody different. The game could have gone a different way. They happened to choose Maria, and it just worked out to our benefit. We got to see the drama out of that. So that was just another luck aspect of the season. Mm-hmm. So then we go into Saturday, and we start to find out if these canoe buddies are still buddies and how these challenges are going to go. And things don't seem as Friday is fun day. It's stress day, but it's fun day. Saturday's not as much fun day because they know that if they don't finish first or maybe second in a challenge, they're not going to have a good next 30 minutes. So what do y'all want to talk about for Saturday? Anything in particular?
Well, for me and probably for Andy too, the big theme starting today, Saturday, is we created just a brief illusion that still is going to be a fourth tribe. And then we put them back. And what happens now? You know, you were gone from your tribe last night. Did they start making alternative arrangements, assuming you weren't coming back? Did they take you back with open arms? If you're Jason and Maria and you're coming back with a challenge advantage, is that enough of an olive branch to kind of get you back in tight again? So that's something that I wanted Andy and Mike to keep an eye on. Was there any residual from those 6 being away from each other on Friday night? Because obviously we're about to get into a challenge and we're going to start voting people out right away. And how quickly can those 6 reintroduce themselves and convince everybody, yeah, I was with them last night, but it didn't mean anything. I'm really still with you guys. So that was something that obviously we've never had to play with before, and we're looking forward to see what that did to everyone.
That was another neat part that I skipped over. I should have got my notes better. But Friday, you guys instilled some little facets around the idols into the challenges. Just because you're playing a challenge, don't think it's just a challenge. It could be more. And there were a couple challenges where there were, and this has already been talked about in the last podcast, but there were idol clues in some of the Friday challenges. So don't just take something for face value. There could be more into the challenge. I'm not saying don't run away from your challenge, but I'm just saying pay attention to what you're holding or what you're doing or what's around you, because we as production, we couldn't wait till Saturday morning because Matt, who got pulled away from his tribe, knew about the idol clue behind the launching spot, the slingshot, and the tree. And Amanda and I think Jeremiah and maybe even Keith were telling us that if Matt went for it, they were going after him. If that tribe stayed as 6 and Matt made a dash for that tree, they were going to chase him down and go get that clue. So we got to watch, and then we got to listen to Jeremiah talk about him and Keith's discussion as to who's going to do the launching and this, that, and the other. And so we're watching. They're setting up for the challenge, and we're watching Jeremiah. And there goes Jeremiah heading for the tree. And it's like, this is cool. And sure enough, he's getting filmed. He's getting covered. Caleb and his crew are watching everything because they know what's going on. And it was great. This is just another carryover from Friday to Saturday. There's no division of the weekend. It feels like 4 days, but it's one day. It's one long day of a game. And that's kind of, I think, how you have to approach it. It never stops. Even if you're doing a reward challenge, you're still leading towards an eventual immunity challenge. So, but that was neat for me coming from Friday night into Saturday morning. But and then we got to see the connections break, the alliances fall apart, the votes change at the last minute. People willing to sacrifice their canoe buddy for strength, other things popping up, and it was another day that ended with balance. You're only going to take 11 people, and what do you want? You want 4, 4, and 3, and that's exactly what you got from these 3 tribes.
It was interesting the why and who and the switching from Thursday to Friday to Saturday when it started coming up. And it was one of the most interesting things was I think Ahaso was able to recognize Dan was Nina's husband. They all keyed on that really quick, and I was curious how that would play out. There were some early targets that remain, and then there was some shifting. Personally, I thought Sawa was going to go for Ariel first, but then they wanted to utilize him for one challenge. So it was neat seeing the transition that happened throughout the few days. But it was pretty definitive who Opal was going to obliterate, and there was no mystery there. Luckily, they won the first challenge. But yeah, it was interesting to watch.
Yeah, some of that, the pecking order of Opa seemed to be pretty consistent. There's a few shifts back and forth. Rachel worked her way up pretty well, which was pretty awesome. Yeah. And then watching Ahaso, Amanda, after the first vote, got blindsided and seemed to be a target the rest of the day. And I got to talk to her 4 or 5 times between challenges, and I kept asking her, how are you still here? And she starts explaining how this works. And this is the part of Survivor I love, that it's maneuvering. It's a social game. Mm-hmm. It's proving your worth. Are you good in challenges, or are you loyal? That could be one or the other. And she got her way all the way to Saturday night. So good on her, for thinking she's going to be the next one to go when John goes, and it's not her. And she lasted the day. I had a ball Saturday, and I promise next year I'll make sure I got a camera behind me. But I had such a good time talking to these people on Saturday and listening as the day evolved, and talking to Ryan as well, how he had his list and Corey had his list. And they were the same list minus Ryan, minus Corey, and playing off each other. And I can't wait for the videos to come out and the season to come out, and it's going to be so good, so full of drama. But so Saturday dwindles down to 11. Anything else before we get to the 11 and Saturday night?
A couple of new things that are going on during the tribal councils this year. because Mike and Andy and you, David, were so plugged in with the tribes, I was getting fed much more information than I've had in years gone by. So I didn't want to necessarily call out anybody at tribal in terms of, hey, I know you and you are having a disagreement. But I was much better armed in terms of how to ask questions. I would still throw out the generic questions about, how's your tribe doing? What's your positioning? What are you thinking about the merge or still winning? But there would always be at least one question at every tribal where I would angle at something that I knew was going on because these guys are feeding me information. Mm-hmm. And I think that made a little more interesting question and answer sessions. Some people still dodged the questions, but I think we got to some more meaty stuff at Tribal Council, and I felt a lot better about that.
Hey, we did our job. That's good.
Yeah.
That does make it. Yeah, there were a few dodgers at Tribal. There were a few short answers, a few non-committals. It seemed like, but you didn't yell at them.
It's a tough part of the job for me because I wish I was like Probst and I had an hour or whatever to just keep digging until I got what I'm looking for. But we've got 5-10 minutes, and I've got to move on. So it is a little frustrating, but at the same time, if somebody's doing that for strategic reasons, I understand that. I might be doing the same thing if I was sitting in their stump. So, I kind of go back to the people that I know are going to give me stuff to work with and work around the folks that are trying to be silent for strategic reasons.
One thing we had different that only Caleb and I saw, and mostly Jen and some production folks, was the passionate voting we had this time. It was a lot less just voting for somebody than leaving. There was a lot of, vindictive voting and emotional voting, and who got emotional and why. That was definitely a development and an evolution from last year, and definitely from season 1. I wasn't at season 2, but you could just see the intensity ramped up. That was amazing to see, and I got to see all of those. So,
well, that's a hat tip to casting. Okay. Oh yeah, I was gonna say that's a hat tip to casting, because instead of getting, I was told to vote for Caleb, so I'm voting for Caleb. So I don't like that Caleb's lost weight. He's better looking than I am, and he's got more hair than me, so I'm voting for him. That's the kind of drama you want, right, Caleb?
Oh yeah. That's why I'm not a. But no, yeah. Just coming back to the whole tribal council thing and being able to be back there and watching all the votes. It's probably going to be one of my favorite ones for a while, but it was the one where Laura slipped up and then she spilled her guts for a good 6 to 8 minutes to the camera, which is going to be gold when it comes across on film. But just being able to get reactions like that out of people, which is, part of it is because of John's probing that he does, during the tribal council, and then they come out and they're like, all right, I didn't want to say it in front of everybody, but this is what's on my mind. And that's definitely something that we didn't get as much last year. So this was really good detail.
Yeah, that was good about Saturday for me, too, because it seemed like we talked about in Survivor, there's one tribe that you don't really see until about the 3rd or 4th episode. They're either winning challenges or they're just kind of floating by. There's not as much story to be told. And that was kind of like a Hasso for me, because they were pretty straightforward. It was Matt, it was Nina, then it was somebody else. And they were just going to go after these people. But on Saturday, Ahasto became this basket case of drama and vote changes and drama and just things going back and forth, and they were so much fun to talk to. I enjoyed talking to them so much, whereas Sawa seemed to be going according to Jason and Kelly's plan, and then that was starting to get turned with Maria and other people stepping up, and then Opa was evolving slowly. It was kind of a calm tribe with, like I said, with Ryan and Corey seemed to work in their plans, Spencer and Twyla working their plans, fixing the ladies in, and it was just so neat. 3 still diverse tribes going through 3 different stages, and like John says, this is what I love about Survivor. I get to see this stuff, and it's like eating at a buffet with the food changes every hour. So,
and one of the coolest things about that, like what you're talking about, is going through right now. I'm working on just the Thursday night confessionals, but just seeing what I do is I take all your notes and I split them up into these different categories, and then I write down where people are saying what. And if you look at all the notes in all of the Ahaso notes, it's all strategic. It's all talking about alliances. It's all their gameplay. In the Sawa, it's all kind of like, oh, we're one big happy family with, our mom, Kelly, and our dad, Jason. And then Oppa, all they talked about for the most part is the group dynamics and what they think of their group. So, it's very cool to see how that just continues to play through, but it's just obvious in what all of them are saying at their confessionals. So,
one thing I thought was another pivotal couple of moments at the end of Saturday was Dan getting voted off and the look on his face when Jason pretty much just said, hey, buddy, I had to let you go. And then Keith obviously getting voted out of Hasso right at the end of the day on Saturday. And I think that changed a whole bunch of things going into who was going to make the merge on Sunday and what ultimately played out. I can't say I was surprised at either of those, but when they actually happened and you saw their reactions and how disappointed they were knowing how close they were to the merge, I thought those are some pretty big moments at the end of the day Saturday.
And the manner in which they went was also instrumental in Sunday. I think that might have been the turning point for some of the Sawa people of, not only who went where, but the way people handled that, the other players. I think that was a big part of Sunday.
It was neat. Something that wasn't on camera was after Ahasso's final tribal. I guess the challenge, second to last challenge, when it was Keith and Laura and Jeremiah and Amanda. And I've been talking to them a lot during the day, especially Amanda and Laura. And Laura, they did the tie, and then before going to the fire challenge, Laura changed her vote. And as soon as they came back, Laura, Jeremiah, and Amanda, I got Laura first, and she said, "Did I just make the right decision?" And I wish I had gotten that on camera, because it was perfect. And all I can say is, I don't know, what good could come out of your decision, or what bad could come out of your decision. Just step her through what's good and what's bad, and then talking to Amanda and how her thoughts evolve from that one vote. Some things were straightforward, and now they've changed. And then you get to talk to Jeremiah, and it's just. It's awesome. It's the evolution of that day. I love Saturday. It was such a great day, and it ended with 11 strong people that had ideas. Most of them had ideas about what they were going to do going into the final day. So going into Saturday night, like I said, is there anything else you want to talk about from Saturday? Great challenges again. Wore them all out. Wore us out watching them, and then we go. Then my first thought is, hey, we've only got 11 confessionals to do. We're going to be done by I'm telling Terry back at the hotel, honey, I'll be home by midnight. We're going to blow through these things like nothing, and I'll be home by midnight before you guys even fall asleep, and we'll be good to go. No, it doesn't happen, because we get the awesome setup from John and Caleb, and then we get what I thought was some of the better confessionals again. These people are finally doing it. They see the light at the end of the tunnel. They said, we're down to 11, and we got so many hours to fight till the end of this game. I really enjoyed Saturday night. Production was at its peak form. It was a beautiful set, and it was a great night for confessionals.
Amazing question.
Just another little...
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just saying the 11 people, like David said, there were no short speakers. Everyone, even the last person that didn't want to be there, it felt like everyone brought it. Ryan talked for, I think it was almost a half an hour. It was in 2 videos I had to edit for Caleb, but it was just amazing what they all, and it was ramped up. You could just see the energy, and people were just popping. It was amazing, and that episode could be almost 2 hours. Just the footage in there. It's gonna be hard for Caleb to chop that stuff down.
I think that one's going to be split into 2, if not 3 episodes, just because of all the coverage we got from it. So,
yeah.
Just to give you another little behind-the-scenes tidbit that comes into play Saturday night, and the amount of crazy thinking that goes into this stuff. Andy was in charge of immunity idols, and we didn't know how many idols were still going to be in the game once we got to the merge on Saturday. So Andy had already developed this flow chart basically saying if there's this many idols, this is going to happen. If there's this many idols, this is going to happen. So right up till the time of the merge, we're still not even sure, is there going to be a merge idol or not? Is it going to be a clue? Is it going to be an actual idol? Is there going to be another one that comes in the game on Sunday? And this was one of Andy's many responsibilities, and he actually makes the call right at the moment. Right before the merge feast food's handed out, it's up to Andy to make sure the idol is in or not in play based on our little flow chart. So this is the kind of craziness that's going on behind the scenes that most people don't ever get to see.
One of the highlights, I think, for everybody left in the game was Saturday night when the merge happened and they got new tribe shirts. So they got to pull off their fish, still smelling like fish shirts, and go into their new shirts. And it's really neat, the drama that still goes on, because, like you said, even when he's sitting there watching, Jordan and Andy and I were watching the new tribe, Andy's still thinking about everything else. He's still thinking about idols. He's still thinking about how things are going to roll. He's watching something, but he's thinking about 12 other things. So it's so cool to watch. And then there's even so much strategy. You really got to pay attention, because we heard in the last podcast about who walks up to the bathroom and who goes and gets water and who does this and that. And it was neat to watch as they were leaving, because I was ready to go get a break, because I knew we were a while before confessionals, but I was ready to walk up for a bit. And then all of a sudden the whole merge tribe takes off except for Kelly and Jason. And I just looked at him. I'm like, what are you doing? Are you cool? I just kind of held up my hands, and Kelly said, come over and talk to us for a minute. I said, okay, I'm here. And then Jason looks at Kelly as if I'm not there, which was kind of neat. And he says, all right, this is our chance. Do we tear up this camp and look for an idol, or do we go get water with the rest of them? And it's so cool that they're still playing. These kids came to play and to win. They wanted every advantage possible, and it was so neat. The game never stops. Like I said, it's all 4 days, but it never stops playing. Don't ever underestimate these survivors. These people aren't here because they look good in a bathing suit or because they won the fan favorite award. They're here because they love the game and they want to win the game. So I'm just warning you, future players, don't underestimate these. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you, don't underestimate these survivors.
They're there to play, and some of them look really good in bathing suits too. But yeah, they definitely have the whole package.
Well, Jason will appreciate you saying that. So.
Yeah, he or Matt, I don't know who would be worse in a bathing suit with the crazy stuff they probably do with beards and everything else.
So we, without giving away too much about Saturday night, because that's probably is going to be one of the better videos to come out from those confessionals. So we get into Sunday. Is there anything else you want to cover before we get into the last day? Nope. Good there. Go ahead. No.
I just said I took a shower after 3 days because I finally had a bit more time. I made sure, so that was
you got to take a shower.
Yeah, because we still got back at like 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, but somehow I managed to get a shower in that day. So yeah, that was.
Yeah, I think by Saturday night when I pulled into the hotel about 2:15, 2:20, and Terry just looked at me and shook her head and said, good luck when you go back the next day at about 3 or 4 hours. So. But Sunday was another beautiful day with more awesome challenges. And before we even get too far into those, I want to give a big hats off to Caleb and William and Elijah for the heat runs. There were 4 heats for one particular amazing challenge. And it wasn't until like the 3rd heat, I think William said, why are we chasing them? We're running around all these heats with all these people. They're only doing it once or twice. We're doing every heat with these people. So
it's the same reason we do all those 59 confessionals and they only do 3. It's just all part of the production. But no, yeah, I was talking to one of the contestants earlier, and I was saying that even though I hated running it that many times, that was actually probably one of my favorite challenges to film, partially just because watching them go through it. And even though they did have the obstacles in their way, I was like, this is like the 3rd or 4th time I've run this, It's not as hard as you might think, but
that was one of my. Well, it's probably not hard for you guys that are fit. For me, I'd be standing in the water just circling as they went around me. So, but if you want to gauge how hard these people are playing, watch Jason in that challenge and watch Spencer in that challenge. That'll tell you how hard the survivors are playing, because Jason would have pushed people in the woods if they were in his way, and then to watch Amanda chase him down, watch the bounty hunter be chased. and caught up to. And that's still one of my favorite challenges of the whole weekend. That was so climactic and so dramatic, and it was just a great challenge.
I got to agree with that. You know, I have to stay so neutral when I'm out there, and I can't help but I have to admit, when I saw Amanda running neck and neck with Jason through that and then ultimately beating him on the puzzle, I probably had a little smile on my face. I hope I wiped it away before anybody saw it. But that would be on my list of favorite moments from the whole weekend, because it's such an underdog story. You know, it's you know, the tribe that needs to, you know, the Ahasos that are down in numbers, and the insurmountable Jason with all his idols, and this is the death blow that's going to take him out of the game, you know, and you couldn't script something like that. So when it plays out, as much as you try to be neutral, you just love when something like that happens.
And we've talked about it before. I don't think we've mentioned it tonight, but this was one of those. I remember specifically being up at the tent. I told Gracie to come up there between the challenge, take a break and get something to eat. We're up in the volunteer tent, and I forget who I was sitting with, but I said, listen to this crowd if Amanda beats him. If this happens. And the crowd was amazing all weekend. They were so loud and so full of cheer, and just they applauded everything. They cheered for even Jason. Even Jason had fans up there that were cheering. They loved him at Tribal Council. They cheered him when he did this and that. But I'm like, listen to the pop that comes from that crowd if Amanda beats him. And they lived up to it. They cheered for everybody. There was no villains. You know, it was I don't know if you make a villain in 4 days. Maybe production was the villain for putting them through this. But still, that was awesome. It was a great crowd. I mean, even if for those, and we can't advertise it enough, but even for those, if you just want to come and watch, there's food. There's everything you could possibly need, and it's a great atmosphere, and there's survivors you get to meet. But it's so much fun. I can't imagine. You know, that's the one neat thing that Survivor doesn't have is the live studio audience that's provided, and it was a great moment. I still remember. I can still hear the cheer or the roar. Yeah, I see that. I can still hear it when Amanda won, and like I said, I think that was one of my highlights of Sunday.
Mm-hmm. That was a big thing, and I liked the challenge. I think it was one or two after where Ryan's savvy enough to know the score and to give Jeremiah the immunity win to make sure Jason didn't get it, and that was just like the 1-2 punch. I was like. Because what happened from a production standpoint when the survivors just literally almost beat the crap out of the other players, and to know it was most likely not going to happen, I love watching that because it was you want the fans. They put in the cash. There's 18 of them. Mathematically, they should dominate, and it was fun to see them, you know, not get so excited and watch that happen.
It was another part of the balance of this season. Spencer made it to the Final Four, just on the challenges. He set a record. How many challenges did he win?
4 straight.
4, man.
4 straight challenges. So that's a Durham Warriors record.
Hey, Mike just mentioned that this Tell Me a Story challenge, and you guys spent a little bit of time on it on your first podcast because Ryan made the great move of giving rings to Jeremiah so that he would win immunity instead of Jason.
Right.
And you guys were talking about, it seemed like I was hovering on the explanation and saying you need to put the ring on your own peg or it will count for someone else. And it seemed like Jason and maybe even Ryan read into that a little bit as if I was encouraging them to do that. And I really wasn't. And Ryan pointed out that I was actually calling out Ryan getting his 4th and his 5th because I hadn't even realized what he was doing. So kudos to him because he took what I didn't say and used it to his advantage. And that's just great Survivor strategy. Whether you're on the real show, Probst always says, if I didn't say you couldn't do it, go ahead and do it and see what happens. So that was not me trying to give any hints to take down Jason or anything like that. It was just a great job by Ryan figuring that out.
Yeah, that's a great story. I love that he shared that with us on our podcast. But yeah, do it until they tell you can't. If you can drink half the water bottle before they tell you you're not supposed to have that. I mean, there's not much else you can do about the water bottle then. But another, like I said, it was a great Sunday. I loved it. The weather was great. It was a beautiful day. When we get down to the final, were you surprised at all towards the end? I'll ask all 3 of you. Were there any surprises about who made it to the end or who got where?
I mean, if we're being 100% honest, I was actually really surprised that Rachel pulled through all the way to the end. And I think that's also like a good part of the story that's going to come out throughout the episodes. But, all of us are always doing analysis of people, and we do a debrief at night. And I honestly didn't even think she was going to make it to the merge. So once she made it to the merge, and then we realized, she basically had a ticket to a Final Three. I thought that was really interesting. It kind of threw me off guard that she pulled through with that. And that alone was actually extremely impressive, at least from my perspective.
I'd echo that.
I would ditto that. I would also say hats off to Maria, too, because I remember William coming to me at the beginning of the day Sunday, kind of giving me the scoop and saying that, here's what Maria has in mind and what she's going to try to pull off. And I said, wow, if she can manage to make that happen, that's really ambitious. And sure enough, there she was in the Final Three. So I kind of had a heads up as to what she was going to try to be doing on Sunday. But when she actually made it there to the Final Three, I was surprised she was able to do it. And that's testimony to how well she played that as well.
I'll agree with both of them, and I'd also say Ryan played a very dominant game, but I was really surprised. I thought Maria was going to get a vote or two, and Rachel possibly too. So that did surprise me. I was pretty certain he would win with what happened, but I wasn't sure. I thought somebody else would get a vote. The shutout surprised me. That really surprised me. I thought it was definitely earned, but I thought Maria did some amazing things and was pretty much how Oprah was able to do what they did. Without her, I don't think it would have happened.
Yeah, I agree, because I'm going to get a little bit on the Rachel train as well, that somebody constantly put herself in the right place, because throughout Friday and parts of Saturday, she wasn't necessarily number 2 or number 3 on certain people's depth charts. And for her to what I continually heard from Rachel's really working herself in. She's loyal, she's trusting, she's a very likable person. So hats off to her, and also to Maria. I agree with John and Mike. I'm gonna jump on the Maria train. That this is what we kind of saw late Saturday night into Sunday. Who's gonna make the move? Who's gonna leave? Because it was obvious that they were going after Jason and Kelly, and Kurt and Maria. What were they gonna do? Who was gonna jump first? And where were they gonna go? And Maria obviously went the right direction. I think Maria was probably one of the more underrated people of the season for getting where she got to. I agree. I was surprised at the shutout. I know Ryan played an awesome game, like you said, a dominating game. I thought Rachel and Maria would both get at least a vote, just for playing the social games, and Maria for playing the gutsy game that she did to make it. She made a big flip, and she got there before Twyla, and she got there before Spencer. And I thought that was pretty impressive. So I was also surprised at the shutout.
Yeah, and just a quick comment about Maria and her gameplay is that woman is quite the fighter. I remember when we were doing the obstacle course challenge, her leg was really bothering her. And I was there. I was right next to her filming her throughout that entire challenge. And she started to get emotional, but she didn't let that stop her from keep going. And if it had been anybody else without that kind of a spirit for the game, I don't think they would have pulled through to the end. So that was also just impressive as a player, how well she did.
Yeah, there's a great story behind Maria, and I think it came out the first night in confessionals. You've probably already run across it, and I hope that's going to make the edit.
That will, yep.
Yeah, I'm not going to give it away here. You have to wait for the videos to be released, but it's a great story from her. And like I said, she was one of my favorites. I got to drive her to the Rocks, and she was one of my favorites to watch and talk to. And if all of her stuff makes the edit, because I know there's a few bleeps probably that are going to come in and out of her, but she is so much fun. Like Mike said, talking about Jamie last year, she was so much fun to talk to. Brutally honest, but brutally a good player, and I thought she did really well as well.
She forgot her filter at the confessionals, and it was amazing. I think some people were a little candid, even with us, even knowing what we were doing. there was nothing with her. She just let it all out, and I loved every second of it. I mean, if I didn't care it was 2 in the morning, I'd listen to her talk till 5 in the morning. It was awesome.
So we get to Sunday. We're crowned with a new champion. Ryan pulls out a unanimous decision, and it's time for lobster. So let's. What else do you guys want to cover towards the end of this season? Anything come out of this that surprised you? Anything not happen that you were expecting to see, or anything take place? More idle play? Were you surprised?
There were several other things that we had built into the game. Like Jason mentioned one in your podcast about the other idol in the matchmaker game. You know, where if somebody turned it over, they'd have to give it to someone on the other tribe. Mm-hmm. We're really hoping that came into play because that could really shake things up as you're about to combine tribes. You know, how does that play out? There's some other things, too, that we won't talk about because we'll probably reuse them, if not this year, but somewhere down the line. There's a whole bunch of stuff we had at least sketched out that could have happened that didn't. And we'll just keep that under wraps, and maybe we'll be talking about those things this time next year.
Yeah, something you've not seen on CBS, so get ready. And one thing that I would like to give a shout-out from this season that actually worked in our game that never worked on the real show is an extra vote, because the only 2 times it has happened, it's been a bit of a dud on Survivor on CBS, but on DWSC, they were able to pull it out, and it actually worked. So, yeah, hats off to production yet again that worked, and we can always put that in our sizzle reel over CBS.
So, Dwaine, you got any questions?
No, but I've been loving it. No, I've just been sitting here listening, man. It's been great.
Well, because I keep hearing this, man, I wish I'd gone. Man, I wish I'd gone.
Well, yeah, there is a lot of that going on in my head. I tell you what, my favorite part 2 years ago was being at the confessionals, and I finally realized who you are, Caleb. You were the guy that that did all the confessionals last year, the year and a half ago, right?
Yep. Oh yeah. And I wasn't even aware I was going to be doing that until that night.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like you did. I was like, so did you know about? No, someone just asked if they knew someone that did camera work, and I had a camera, so I'm doing camera work.
I think I was like, hey man, what are you doing tonight?
This is what happened. Is I walked up because we were in that little cabin that's at Stump Corral. I walked up to there to take a break, and Mike literally asked me. He's like, hey man, I'm Big Mike. We're going to be doing confessionals. Do you mind sticking around? And I was like, oh, this is going to take like an hour, I guess. Yeah. It won't be too bad. And then I spent the next 6 hours in that cabin doing confessionals. But no, that was great. But
yeah.
One more thing I need to say. I can't let any conversation go by without thanking the hordes of volunteers that really make this happen. I was amazed at the picture that got posted. It was floating around Facebook where we took that shot after the challenge ended of just the volunteers that were still there. And I think I could count maybe 80 people in the picture. And that's not everybody. And that's, as we keep getting more creative and innovative, the main reason we can do it is because we've got people like all you here who come out and volunteer and spend ridiculous amounts of hours in the middle of the night, and all the people on the other side of the house that take care of the logistics of getting people to and from the field and making sure food's there. There's probably 125 or more volunteers, and they don't get enough recognition in my point. We're the ones sitting here in front of the cameras, but my daughter Jen runs all the challenges, and she's got a team of people that I just walk away, and they have everything set up. I turn around and come back. And same thing with these guys. At the end of the night, I go back to the hotel and take a shower while they go out and do all the hard work in the field. So I just want to say thanks to everybody who gives of their own time and really makes this be able to be the size and the scope of event that it really is.
Yeah, I'll admit the first night, Thursday night, about 1:15, I'm thinking, we're going to do this every night? This is going to run every night. Okay, well, if they're going to do it, I'm going to do it. And then Friday night, it was like, yeah, we're doing this again until 1:30, 2 o'clock. And then Saturday night, okay, it's running later than I thought, but, man, it was so worth it. It's so much fun listening to the stories and watching the evolutions of the games change and play. And I can't wait for the videos to come out and the clips for everyone to just see all the detail that went into the season and behind it. And like John said, man, just the first challenge alone, from the people at the house doing the quick clips, the drivers, the volunteers getting the cars around. Then you've got volunteers out where all the canoes are going to. You got volunteers posted there. You got volunteers posted by the canoes waiting for the drivers to go. It's a mass of people that were still involved, and that wasn't even everybody. A lot of people showed up Friday, and some didn't show up till Saturday. So it's such
45 people just to run the opening.
Wow.
Different volunteers.
But it says a lot that picture is going to keep growing every year, because I know that most of the people that played this year are already making plans to come back next year, and they want to find a post and fill in somewhere, and it's a blast. And like I said, I brought Gracie, and she got to be one of the spotters on the first night, and then she got to work for Jim the rest of the weekend. Had a blast, and so it's an amazing experience. So, is there anything you want to cover, since we're only on 2 hours and 4 minutes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
I got to get up and work out in the morning, man.
Dwayne messaged me about an hour ago. Now you're on Sunday.
No, that was a half hour ago when y'all started Sunday.
So
If you're an
I don't know what you guys are
interested
talking about. It's only 11 o'clock. We should be going till like 2 in the morning,
It's
right?
halfway
we're just done with the first tribe right now. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We still got to pick up and go set up somewhere else.
That's right.
Oh,
All right, was there
man.
anything else you guys wanted to cover before we wrap up?
I'll give you a little teaser. We usually take a month or two off after the challenge, and we call it our decompression time. And we probably don't talk much, but we all came out of this year so much more, I guess I'll use the word relaxed. And there's already been a bunch of great ideas that we've been kicking around. So we are actually way ahead of schedule in terms of thinking about DWSC 2017, which is good for us and probably a little more challenging for our next group of applicants. We already got some great twists in mind, and we're already excited about it. So application window will probably open up right after the new year. So keep checking DurhamWarriorsChallenge.com, and we'll have everything you need to know up there.
I think you should have a masseuse for each tribe, some nice ice water buckets. Those are just some ideas. Some blow-up
They can
mattresses.
be rewards.
Yeah.
There was
No.
there was a masseuse this year at the volunteer camp.
Yeah.
Yes.
She was
It wasn't last year.
phenomenal.
I would have loved that. You know how much
She was
weight I gained
amazing.
last year? I gained so
Only
much
got one
weight
slice
last year from eating all that amazing food. And there is this donut shop up in Maine that is better than any donut shop in the history of donut shops. And I cannot wait to have those donuts again.
Eat the breakfast pizza, but only have one slice if you're
Yeah,
gonna
I
have
bet.
it, because it's too awesome.
Yeah. How much easier was it to walk around in the woods this year, Mike?
Oh, phenomenal! I'm down 250 now, and at the event I was down, I think 220ish, 225, and just so easy to get around. And when I look at this big blob, so that's
We didn't hear anything, and then we heard this big blob.
oh yeah, it was great to get around and not be the big blob.
Yeah, there you go.
So I just want to tag on to what John said. For all of you thinking about applying, they did this season in less than, 8-9 months they came up with this. Now they're already starting a whole year in advance, and they're already coming up with stuff. So you people need to be ready. Watch every season again of Survivor, and then forget everything you've seen, and then watch all the Durham Warrior stuff, and then think about what you're going to see and not see. These devious people have already started thinking about how they're going to turn your life upside down when you come here for 4 days.
Yeah, June 23rd to 26th. So if you're going to be there as the participant, great. If not, it's worth your while to come out and just watch. So put those dates on your calendar.
That's right. That's right.
All right,
Yeah,
Caleb. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, all I wanted to tag on to that is as soon as I got home from this last event, I got my computer all set up and I finished up season 3 and I immediately started on season 4 right after that. And episode 1 is probably I'm going to say 2 hours of editing away from being completed as far as when you guys are going to go through and review it. And it is amazing. It looks like we could air it on TV. It's that good. And the worst part about it is everything that I've had to cut out of it. Just because there's the story that we're trying to tell, but there's so much good content, and so much that we were able to capture this year that it's really amazing what we've gotten. And so as soon as I get that done, I'm sending it over to you guys because I need you guys to see it too because it's just that good.
Yeah, I got to look at Thursday's confessionals, and I wrote a lot of edits saying you should really use this, or you should really include this, or this would be really good. So I can understand that you having to drop out some stuff that was going to be good.
And that's just the confessionals, doing all the footage from all day. It's just everything that we got is so good. And I packed us right now. We're running about, I think it's at 43 minutes right now, and it's just packed all the way through with a lot of great stuff, everything that happened throughout the day. So it's really exciting.
Awesome. Mike, what about you? Anything else you want to spit out there tonight? Mike's talking to his fans. Oh, is he stuck or is he typing something?
I think he's stuck.
I think he's stuck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's super exciting for me what Caleb just said because you guys know more about what happened than I do. And this is the really fun time for me. I get to be a fanboy of kind of my own creation, and I get to see all the stuff that you already knew happened and kind of relive it from the backside. So I'm excited. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
I think all the players are excited too because they want to know what people said about them.
Yeah.
I remember after my first confessional, Kristen told me, she goes, now what did you say? Because these people are going to watch this after it's all over with. And this was in the Stump Corral hut, which I think those aren't going to make it out of. But she said, because these folks are going to watch. I said, oh man, I hope I didn't say anything bad about anybody. But that's what happens for the weekend.
Right.
All right,
David.
So, yep, I think we're about done. Unless Mike's gone.
Mike's gone.
So.
It was fun having Mike on. It was fun having all of y'all on. Thanks for being on the show. Hope you'll listen to us during the regular season of CBS Survivor. That would be great.
Oh, there's a show on CBS?
It'll give me something to do while I'm editing.
Yeah, there you go.
It won't. Hopefully, it won't put you to sleep like some other things that you might listen to. But otherwise, we'll try and keep you awake.
Yeah. All right, Dave. You got anything else to say before we close it out?
I think I've said it all. Like I said, it's only 11:11, but still, I love talking about this as much as being a part of it.
I know because when I was there for vacation, you talked about it all the time.
I was just telling you what you missed.
It's like, hey, David, check out that tree over there. You know that at Durham Warriors there was this tree?
And Caleb lit it up with these torches, and it just looks so awesome.
Yeah.
And there was a community clue hidden under there?
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening to Survivor Talk with D&D. As always, you can support us by shopping Amazon using our links, which is www.stwdd.com/Amazon. And, of course, we would love it if you became a D&D patron. We also have a podcast called Movie Talk with D&D. In fact, we just talked about Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, The Legend of Tarzan, and what was the other one, David?
Everest.
So go check that out. So it was fun, guys. Thank you, Caleb, for being on the show.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to come back sometime. So.
Thank you, John Vatahaya.
Yeah, you got it.
Bye, everybody. It's been great.
See ya.